What is up, everybody, and welcome to the FPL WildCats Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Do please consider hitting that like button, and sharing out this stream just so we can get as many people in this chat talking about FPL. And I'm here with my 3 favourite FPL members of the community.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Well, nice way to start. And I will pass over to Nim, who brought us all together to get proceedings underway.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Yeah, well, from the nice and the sublime
I had to be positive at some point because it's going to go downhill.
Yeah, true.
Absolute ridiculousness that is FPL. What a messy old week, eh? Due to some big names and big captain choices not showing up or being benched. But as some of us have had a terrible week, some of us done okay. So, Kurt, would you like to go first and tell us how you got on?
I got on very poorly this week. I was absolute rubbish. 45 points this week, above average again. It is becoming quite weird that I'm having a relatively good season. And I'm not going to lie, I don't like it. I prefer to just be back down the bottom again because there's nothing riding on me.
No
Then I could just go back to shouting at Salah the entire week and then getting nothing done. But 45 points this week. Blessed with a bit of good fortune. I did start Cresswell. I didn't realise he wasn't going to play. He was injured. So off came Rico. Wasn't able to get Lundstram on. But I'm not too fussed about that because I wasn't ever going to start him. So the points are always going to be missed. No one expected them to beat Arsenal and also to get a clean sheet, more importantly. But 45 points, it's not too bad. I stuck with Digne and it's managed to pay a little bit of rewards. I do think, though, that looking at Digne now, maybe it's, he's just got a few more game weeks left because they're in for an absolutely torrid run soon. So he'll be soon out. Rico getting 8 points. Glad I brought him in at 4 million, I believe it was. Gilbert coming up with some points as well in Aston Villa's win. A very, very late goal from target, but Gilbert got an assist as well. So maybe Gilbert's going to continue sneaking under the radar. 2nd assist of the season. And it is worth noting, though, that Gilbert's fixtures are going to get a bit harder now. I know they've got Man City and Liverpool in the next 2. So, it's worrying times. And apart from that, a lot of my front line didn't really perform. Sterling managed to have a 5-pointer, so bang average from him. You got Vardy as well on 8 points. And he had a good game week. Apart from that, Firmino blanked. Aubameyang blanked. He's my captain. Son got 1 point. He didn't start. Mason Mount got a clean sheet but didn't get anything from the 1-0 win. McGinn got nothing. So all in all, it's a week that I can be content with. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. It was a bang average week, and it's one that I can be happy with because, well, as I'm assuming we're going to find out, it could have been a lot worse.
That's very
45
good.
45 is quite good this week.
It is very good, mate. It's a great effort for this week.
Yeah, good effort. So, Brett, tell us how you got on.
Not so good. Just in a rut, really. So the previous week I had 26 points. This game week I'm on 31. So what's that? 57 in 2 weeks.
It's improvement. It's improvement.
It's an improvement from game week.
It is positivity, my friend. That's what it is.
And ironically, just looking at my team now, actually, in game week 8, Lundstram with 5 points was my highest scorer. In game week 9, Lundstram with 6 points is my highest scorer. So actually, my highest scorer in 2, I just realised Lundstram is my highest point scorer in both weeks. I don't know. I don't know what to say, really. I mean, Sterling got an assist, but, 5 points from Sterling, 3 from De Bruyne. Son at home to Watford benched, hit the bar in the second half. I took out Kane, which actually paid off. He didn't score against Watford, thankfully. And I used 2 free transfers to go from Kane and Greenwood to Abraham and Wilson. And because Greenwood isn't really playing that much, it was kind of like 2 players for 1. And with Abraham playing Newcastle at home and Wilson playing Norwich at home, they were sort of talk of the town, really, which one of them to get. And I thought I'd get both, both blanked. I think it just Bournemouth and Norwich drawing 0-0. They were the only 2 teams yet to keep a clean sheet this season. So, of course, they both keep a clean sheet in that game. And Norwich with the worst defensive record in the league, 21 goals conceded, lost on the road every game so far before the Bournemouth game. So it just sums up this season, which defies logic, really. I feel like a lot of us are making logical decisions that just aren't paying off. So I keep trying to tell myself that, it's like my bad season isn't all down to luck. It is a lot of mistakes on my part, but what can you do if Wilson and Abraham blank at home to Norwich and Newcastle, and there's there has been a lot of bad luck along the way. So yeah, 31. I'm back into the 2 million club now, just inside the top 2 million. Or just outside the top 2 million, I should say. So yeah, pretty disastrous. I'm hoping things can turn in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it does seem it's been a bit like that for some people, especially some of the bigger accounts that we're used to. And on that note, Jay, I know that you're having some issues yourself.
Well, I got worse and went down to 30 points for this game week. After playing my wild card, and you always hope after playing your wild card that you have a really good game week. And literally the whole weekend was full of my players getting very close or VAR ruling out their goals or assists. And it just seems like potentially the team is the right team for me to have at the moment, but it just didn't perform in game week 9. I don't really know if there's much I would actually change about it. I mean, Tamori came in, did manage to get a clean sheet, which was expected, and I'm happy at least that came true. Sterling getting an assist. Again, I would have probably gone to Aguero or Aubameyang on the wildcard instead of Sterling, so that was a correct pick. But other than that, it just seems like I made the wrong pick everywhere. And it's that McGinn slot that was probably the one that hurt me the most, because I was thinking McGinn, Mount, Hudson-Odoi, or Grealish. If I'd gone Grealish or Hudson-Odoi, and then if I hadn't benched Lundstrom, and I might just not bench Lundstrom for the rest of the season then, and then Rico as well, in a game where, again, like Brett said, everyone looked at it and thought there's not a clean sheet in this game. Both sides are probably going to score. And Rico keeps a clean sheet. So I think I lost out a lot to people that had Rico.
Was he on your bench, Rico?
Yeah, Rico was first sub. So actually, Connolly was.
A lot of people got Rico off the bench, didn't they?
Yeah. So unfortunately for me, because players like Salah didn't start, people got those points from their bench if they did bench them, and I didn't. I have gone now to Mane, and again VAR ruled out Mane's goal, which would have come from a Trent assist. So that would have been the perfect goal for me in that game, and it didn't come through. But I feel like this is still pretty close to the team I would want going into the next couple of game weeks. The one that I probably am looking at and thinking I wish I had got him in somehow would be Vardy. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with my team. I just hope it does start to perform, because it just seems like no matter how happy I am with my side, they're not going to get me points.
Yeah.
But it's only 10 game weeks in. Got plenty of time. 28
ages,
games.
Yeah. Ages. Absolutely.
I'm going to keep saying that. It's going to come to game week 37. I'm going to be like, there's still one game week left.
Yeah.
I can bring it back.
Yeah.
I did a video.
Sorry, carry on.
That's okay.
Sorry, Sheffield Wednesday won. I was just watching the end of the game. Sorry, carry on.
Good times. I did a video yesterday and I said I'd let people know my updated score and OR on here after the Arsenal Sheffield United match, because I only did a provisional review. So I got 34 points. Not great, not terrible. I kind of like, it's not above average, but again, I'm with some of you guys. It could have been a lot worse. I mean,
was that a red arrow, Nim? Or
it was. So my standout players were Rico, obviously with his 8 points, Lundstrom, who I got off of the bench for Salah. I think I may be the only Salah person standing, am I? Left of the Wildcat.
Oh, yeah.
I think I might be.
Wow.
Oh my God, so weird. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. So, Salah. Then it was basically past those two. It was just a sea of 2s and 3s in points. I unfortunately captained Aguero. And I say my video was absolutely heartbroken for him to not start. And then tonight he goes and gets a brace. I cannot actually believe it. And of course, Sterling starts to do really well the week after I've sold him for KDB, and KDB gets nothing. So that's about as typical. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on the weekend. But I had Tammy as vice captain, so I got his 2 points double. So that place, you're right.
No, I was just saying, 2 people on Tammy Abraham, 2 points for 4.
So it placed me at an OR of 365,363 at the minute. Yes, it was a red arrow, Brett, but a smallish one. It was going to be a lot worse until that Lundstrom clean sheet came off of the bench. So I would have been about 470, I think, according to Live FPL. So it could have been, a lot worse, really. So I guess even though I had to sit through that Arsenal match and pull my hair out, at least there was a silver lining to that very dark stormy cloud. I have already done the transfer this week. Pretty ballsy, I think.
Nice.
I've already sold Pookie for Vardy, and I did it last night for the price rise.
Oh, a nice bit of cash in the bank, was there?
So when I sold Sterling to KDB, I had 2.1 in the bank.
Nice.
So
just enough there then. Just enough, really.
Literally the exact amount.
I can understand why you've made it, because he rose, didn't he? So maybe you might have been crossed out.
Yeah, he did. I was between him and Wilson. I got to admit, like, Wilson was like very close.
I've got Wilson now, so you don't have to worry. Don't worry. It's going to be garbage.
Well, I've seen you and Jay had him, and I thought
I should have realised Brett had him and gone, nope.
We need to speak about it beforehand, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Next time, we
need to work on our communication.
We do, yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sold on it. I'm not completely convinced. That money was kind of going to be left there in order for me to work Sterling back in. But I did have 2 free transfers, and I have left myself a bit of wiggle room. So I do know how I can get Sterling back in the week after next, or even next week for a -4 if I just really can't stand to be without him anymore. But it would be at the expense of Aguero. So a little bit of thinking to be done there. So cool. Shall we move on to some questions? So if you want to get your questions in the chat, guys, that'd be great, and we will pick a couple out to be mentioned. But for now, we'll crack on with some of the messages that we got on Twitter and Instagram. So Isla of Weather asks, is it time to scrap your ideas for who makes a good captain and go off-road for some randoms? So Jay, what do you reckon? Do we stick with the crowd on our captain choices, or is it time to go off-road and try something a bit different?
Well, I mean, I tried something a bit different and went to Abraham, and if I'd stuck to my plan, I'd have probably been on Sterling. And although it's not massive margins there, Sterling would have been a better captaincy option than Abraham.
6 points.
9. So yeah, it would have made a difference in a low-scoring game
in a week where all the big captain choices blanked. That 10 points would have been a very good captain.
I'm still a believer that I'm not necessarily saying you should be following the crowd if there is a more popular option out of the premium price ones, but I think you do need to be still hedging your bets on the big hitters like your Sterlings and so on. Abraham, of course, is someone that's very capable of scoring a brace, but this game week it shows that if I'd stuck with Sterling, then I'd have probably been better off. But I would say the reason it was this game week where I didn't go for someone like that is because I looked at the fixtures and I thought I could read them, and I thought Abraham would be a better choice than Sterling. I was wrong. I've been wrong most of the season with my captaincy pick, but you have to kind of mix it up. Sometimes you go for that risk, sometimes you just go with the crowd or for one of the premium options. But I wouldn't just be doing it every single game week going for random pick.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because going against the crowd can be both really good and really bad, I think. So if the big hitters fail, like they did this week, and you've gone against the crowd, then you can make some serious gains. but obviously that works in the opposite direction as well. So if you pick a random and the masses have a different captain, and that person goes big, so say this week you'd gone Tammy and Aguero had happened to have been the one that, you know, did do very well this week, that could be a serious rank killer. So it's really difficult at this point in the season to know what to do. I tend to leave my kind of massive, like, batshit crazy captain choices until near the end of the season personally. But Brett, what do you think?
I feel so like downbeat. I can't answer any of these questions at the moment. So I've had seven captain blanks in 9 game weeks. So
we need a sub on Brett,
I literally cannot get a captain pick right, but like, obviously ownership is important, and there's going to be game weeks where there's a very popular choice at home in a good fixture that, you know, everyone's going to captain that player. So that will come into mind. And like, if you know, let's say Salah was at home to Newcastle, for example, and you know that's such a popular captain choice, that is an opportunity to go against the crowd for the potential of greater gains, you know, but the risk is higher because you're going against a player that, you know, everyone is captaining. But it is good to measure how obvious a captain pick is, because if Salah's at home to Newcastle, you know a lot of the game are going to go for him. In the previous game week that's just gone, it was the opposite, because it was actually easier to go for a differential captain because Sterling was not in the best form and away to a defensively sound Palace, who have been very good defensively at home. And Liverpool were away to United, which is always unpredictable, and they don't have a great record there. So I went for Wilson, which I had decided quite early into the international break. I saw the Norwich fixture.
You weren't alone there. I think a lot of the community, went for Wilson.
They did. And if I'm honest, that wasn't, when you come in to pick your captain, you still got to pick the player that you think is going to get the most points that week, you know? It wasn't the community thing. I know like you said, lots of people on Twitter, a lot of big players even went for Wilson as well. And that kind of gave me a bit of comfort when I saw that. But actually, I had blanked with Sterling 5 weeks in a row. I was like, right, he's away to Palace now. He's blank 5. Oh, he's got 1 goal. So 4 out of 5 blanks and 1 goal. And I just thought, let's try something different. I looked at that Norwich fixture and I thought, I'll go for that, because I thought there was a chance of massive points there, you know. So ultimately, you can think about all these stats and who's going to be the most captain, but you have deep down just got to go for who you think is going to score the most points, you know. So yeah, I tried something different a little bit. I guess Wilson was arguably a differential. He's like 13% owned at the time. I was in need of a differential, but yeah, it sounds obvious, but you still just got to go with who you think will get the most points, you know?
Yeah. And anything you'd agree or disagree with there, Kurt?
Basically, Brett's point, I don't look at it who's owned, who's most owned, who's least owned. I look at the fact that generally at this sort of time of the year, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, there's only 3 people ranked below me. I need to start to get some points here. And at the end of the day, granted, it may not be a rank-killing move or anything. I just look and I think, who's got the most chance of scoring points? Or if someone like Aubameyang scoring consistently week in, week out, I think it's a safe bet. Obviously, since I've moved him on to captain, and he's not been a safe bet. But generally, it is just, I don't care what the percentage is. If they look like, unless they Vardy's going away or at home to Bournemouth, you think, excellent, that's a really tasty game. I'll stick Vardy as captain, and you know that's basically how I do it.
Cool. Okay. Well, a bit of everything there. Okay. So at our Pristavu, I think, would like to know: is it worth sticking with both Sterling and KDB considering Pep Roulette? And at Just Football FC would like to know the same thing, actually. So obviously we've heard that Sterling's absolutely ripped it up tonight. KDB not so much, a little bit quiet, got like taken off, did we say, around the
67th minute, which is positive for the Villa game.
Yeah. For me, the fear of not having KDB outweighed owning Sterling, so that's why I did that transfer last week of course, that will now mean that Sterling will be absolute fire.
I hope so. One of us is going to be happy.
One of us is indeed. Is it worth sticking with them though? Because there's a lot of people, and we will know that there are the people like Sam from FPL Family, who's done quite well with just having one City player and sticking with them through the, the thick and the thin.
Yeah.
So do we stick with these players? Like, I'm very much in the same position now with Aguero. I'm going to have to be considering whether or not I keep him past this game week. I know obviously it will mean like a big difference whether he starts or not in this next match. But
yeah,
is it worth the money? What do we think?
I'll just quickly go. I think no matter which Man City player you've got, only Pep knows what team he's going to put out. So we can sit here and try and second guess him. But with Villa and Southampton in back-to-back home games, I just don't see the point in moving them around now.
Yeah.
So granted, Sterling's done amazing tonight. I think he's played like 3 games in the last week or something. He's played a lot of games. He might get benched against Villa, but we don't know that. So I don't think I'm going to transfer him out. I want City players for that game. So if I transfer out Sterling, who I've got De Bruyne already, so who can I get? Like a Mahrez who could get benched, or Bernardo, or David Silva?
I mean, it's looking like a Silva, considering they got rest tonight. It's looking like one of the Silvers will be there on the weekend, but it's anyone's guess.
It is, and then they got Southampton at home the next game. So, and I'm happy with Sterling for that one. So, I just. That's my personal opinion. It might be a not popular one, but I'm not going to touch my Man City players for these 2 home games now, and I'm just going to see where it gets me, because all the Man City players get rotated, like Mahrez and David Silva and Bernardo, but they're all on about the same amount of points, because when they do play, they still rack up the points. Granted, Sterling's a lot more expensive, but for now, he is explosive, and I'm just going to hope he pays off. But I can understand people dropping him.
Yeah. Kurt, are you on double City in midfield?
No, just Sterling.
No, just Sterling. So would you advise to stick if you had both, or do you think it's been worth you spreading your cash elsewhere?
I mean, it's, to have 2, you've got 20 million of your original, obviously price rises, so you may have different money in your bank, but let's say you got 100 million, that's 20 million basically that you've got in Manchester City, potentially a bit more now with the price rises. And granted, yes, it's a lot of money, but surely you're guaranteeing at least one of them will start and return the way City attack, the way City play. But it's an expensive risk, and there will be weeks like Wolves where maybe none of them return. So I would advise not going with it.
And
personally.
You're always tempted to captain them. This is my problem with owning Aguero, is that whilst I have him, I'm always going to be tempted to captain him, which would be fine, hopefully, for the next game or 2. But beyond that, that's why I'm almost thinking I'll sell him then, because I don't want to be kind of maybe sucked into that feeling like, oh, I can captain him again in this game when, he might not even play it. So it does create this kind of temptation to captain when they're there. Jay, what do you think? If you because you've just done your wild card, so did you consider going without 2 City players in that wild card at all?
I was very close to just having Kevin De Bruyne. The only reason I didn't go that way was because I'm tempted to try and have Mane and Salah later. That's only like 3 or 4 game weeks time to double up on Liverpool and then only have 1 City. And to do that, it kind of felt easier to have premium priced Sterling
leave
in
those
the field.
slots there.
Yeah. So because I didn't fancy Aubameyang, because when Aubameyang was in my side, that meant Sterling was out. For me, it's all a question of, at the end of the season, do we think Man City and Liverpool are going to be head and shoulders the best 2 attacking teams in the league? If they are, then you need their players. Yeah. My only caveat on that is I think Chelsea have shown they're capable of scoring a lot of goals. So maybe the Chelsea players offer some value there where we could consider having less Man City and Liverpool players. I mean, I've tripled up on Liverpool and Man City at different times this season already, and I've kind of gone away from that now with only 2 of each at the moment.
Yeah.
But I personally feel like the sides that are going to be scoring the most goals, you need to have two of their options. One, to make sure you're at least involved in a game where there's a lot of goals. So, for instance, that Watford game when Kevin De Bruyne was involved in it, at least you've got some kind of attacking returns there. It wasn't ideal the way those goals came in that game, but I just feel like you have to have players in those sides that can have those really big results that are probably a little bit more predictable than, say, your random big scoring game from, say, your Aston Villas or so on and so forth. So for me, I still think it's worth doubling up. I just don't think it's paid off yet. Season long, I'm hoping it will.
Yeah, to put it into perspective a little bit, there is a person in my mini league that has KDB, Sterling, and Aguero from City at the moment, and there is a person that has Salah and Mane. And the person with Salah and Mane is at the top of the league, and the person with 3 City players, KDB, Aguero, and Sterling, is 7th. Out of 9 people.
Wow.
So there's that's maybe something to kind of keep note of. I think whilst it's interesting to see that obviously the Pep Roulette does hurt the FPL points to a perspective, because you would think, having Aguero and KDB and Sterling, that that would be brilliant, but as we've been able to discuss here on the Wildcats, some weeks you guys have got points, with KDB where I didn't have him, and then other weeks I've done well with Aguero while you guys haven't had him. So it's, it's always been shared out. Excuse me, which just goes to show that those people who've had, say, one of those players plus then somebody else maybe from another team that's also done well has profited better from that. I guess it's Jay's right though, season long, will those players push through, compared to others?
Well, I think a big thing is if you've got the captaincy calls right as well.
Yeah.
If you manage to get them right, then, I mean, we can say these players have done better than these, as pairings, but it's whether the manager captained the right player that week. If they have, then there's going to be a massive difference in points anyway. But I have said before on the stream, I have been tempted a few times by a Salah Mane double up, purely because I feel like, at least with Liverpool, usually the goals come from those front 3.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more predictable than it is with City, where you
and
have
they are
loads
usually
of
less
players.
likely to be dropped, aren't they? Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
They are.
I mean, Salah
100%.
does get, he was injured this week, and that was the only reason why he didn't play. Let's be honest. It wasn't because Klopp decided he needed a rest, or there was competition or anything like that. So.
But could you imagine a Man City game against good opposition and not having a Man City option? I think that would terrify me.
Yeah.
That's
I
kind
don't
of thing.
I don't think I could go without Man City, that's for sure. But I think maybe there is such thing as overdoing it as well, maybe sometimes, just because of the prices. So okay, he did ask another question quickly before we get some a question from the chat. I'm not sure if he'll still want to do this move given how well the Spurs have done tonight, but he said, who would you change Son with? He's considering Hudson-Odoi or Maddison. So, Kurt, first of all, I know you've got Son. Keep hold, and if not, if this person is wanting to definitely get rid, would you go with Hudson-Odoi or Maddison?
I personally would keep hold. I always have faith in Son, and granted, he hasn't had the last 2 game weeks haven't been too good for Spurs, but they have got a few decent fixtures. I think the next 2 maybe could be hard away against Liverpool and Everton. That's maybe a concern, but I'm looking at it. He's priced at 9.7 at the moment for me. So I've gained money on him. I'm not going to lose too much if he drops down a couple of pegs. And there's also the possibility that Spurs could counter. I remember if Pochettino just whip them back into shape, whip them back into the old Spurs, the first team to derail The Pep Guardiola Man City of a few years ago, that 2-0 win was Spurs. And the way Spurs played, it could suit Son if that happens. In terms of replacements, if you're looking a bit further down, I like the look of Leicester at the moment. I like the look of their fixtures. I know there's going to be a few interesting points to make on this. I quite like Harvey Barnes. I know there's going to be a couple of interesting...
I've tried that before.
Yeah. I'm just, he's got 1 goal, 3 assists. He's got 3 assists in the past 3 games. I'm looking at their fixtures, and the thing is, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not really too much of a stat man with FPL. If I am pretty much just, I see something shiny, I want it. And looking at that green, red, green, it looks shiny to me, and I want it.
And that red is Arsenal, so it's not really a red.
Yeah, so the red is basically a green. So
it's at home. Yeah,
it's
that's a nice
basically a
fixture.
tick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's the one I'd be tempted with. Personally, the other one, Hudson-Odoi, could be a potential, but there is also, although I don't think it will be too much, there is competition for places there, and I think he could get chopped and changed. So be aware of that. Mount could be a good option, though. I think he's pretty set in stone. But my personal pick would be Barnes.
And anyone got any objections or differing opinions to that?
I mean, the only ones I'd really add to the list that Kurt had there would be Grealish and Tillmans from Leicester as well, because sometimes that guy just looks like a class above as a central midfielder, and I think Leicester really did well to manage to sign him after how well he did on loan last season. And with Leicester's fixtures, I think as long as you don't go Jose Perez, you're probably onto a winner.
Amen to that.
I don't know. You've sold him now.
I sold him ages ago. He's got 2 assists. That's all he's done.
Yeah, he flopped.
Yeah,
he flopped, let's be honest.
To be fair, he did.
I've got Son at the moment, and actually Jason from Elite FPL is in the chat as well, and he asked a similar question. So he's got Son, and he's thinking to get Callum Hudson-Odoi. So same question, really. I'm really torn on this one because the obvious move for me this week could be to get rid of Son. Like Kurt said, long term he's a good option, but it is Liverpool away next and Everton away in the following fixture. So when you look at that on paper, that can kind of trick you into thinking they're not 2 good fixtures there. So I might get rid of them.
Do we know what their opponents were like tonight? Like in
their
terms of
Serbian league.
Okay, so
I wouldn't say
we
they're
should
the
be
toughest.
Expecting Spurs to beat them effectively.
Yeah.
A bit like they should have beaten Colchester. Sorry, Spurs fans.
Silence there. We're all a bit like, whoa. You just
Sorry, I used to live in Colchester, so I was quite happy with that result.
Yeah, I'm still thinking what to do. But basically, so people mentioned Maddison and Hudson-Odoi. To be honest, Son to Hudson-Odoi was the exact move I was considering. I was considering to get Hudson-Odoi.
Okay, so
3
everyone
assists
should avoid
Hudson-Odoi. Probably, yeah. So avoid Hudson-Odoi, exactly. Well, unless I don't get him. So I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll keep you all posted.
Caveat. Asterisk.
Yeah. So 3 assists, an assist in each of his last 3 games, the 3 games that he's played in, I think. He's got 3 assists, 6 million, he's such a talented player. He's someone that I was interested in at the start of the season, but he was injured. He was like my preferred pick, really, because of all the interest that Bayern Munich wanted him. And, Chelsea had to give him $100,000 a week. And I know a wage doesn't say how good a player is, but clearly there was a lot of belief in him. So he was someone I was quite interested in at that price, 6 million. But everything I seem to do goes wrong in FPL. So I might just hold Son, to be honest. Everton away in the week after this. I mean, Spurs.
Should I get my tiny violin out?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. Everton away for Spurs isn't the worst. I mean, they smashed them like 6-2 last season at Goodison Park, and Son got like 2 goals and 2 assists, like a massive haul. And so you're probably blank now if I do keep him. But I've still stupidly got double Liverpool defense. I know people will probably think that's ridiculous.
Well, it worked out fine last week. Really went from Trent possibly getting an assist to Robbo getting you an assist. So it worked out.
I don't have Robbo though.
Oh, you don't? Oh no!
I want Robbo.
I thought you did.
I started the season with him, then I wildcarded them out stupidly, and now I'm trying to get them back in again because I'm an idiot and I'm going back on everything I started with.
It's like me with KDB and Aguero. I went with Sterling all these weeks, barely anything apart from the first 2 weeks, and now I've switched to Sterling.
So in
out to
theory, what we all should have
KDB.
done is picked a side at the beginning and
Yes.
then just not looked at the game
Not
until
looked at
game week
100%.
6-ish.
I had Vardy at the start. I had Robertson at the start. Like I
had
had
Wilson at the start.
Yes,
I got rid of them all. I
had Grealish. I
Wow.
had Gilbert at the start as well.
Nice.
Don't have him now.
So yeah, my point is I don't actually want Van Dijk. I would like the double up, maybe Trent and Robbo again soon when the fixtures turn. But I'm probably going to stick by double Liverpool defense. They're not keeping clean sheets, but they're only conceding one each game. And I just think like if I've got double Liverpool defense and I've got Son in, my season's going so badly. At least like one of them will surely pay off.
Yeah.
So I was sort of like, look, if I'm not going to get a clean sheet from those two, maybe Son will score. I don't know. If I get rid of Son, it will be for Hudson-Odoi almost certainly. The only other person I would go to is to try and upgrade Son to the likes of Mane or Salah again because I haven't got those. Maddison looks a great option. Leicester's fixtures are amazing, like Kurt said. I think 8 of the next 9 games or 7 of the next 8 have got a difficulty rating of 2, according to FDR. I just think, is Maddison a prolific goal scorer? Is he going to get loads? I think Hudson-Odoi is maybe a bit more attacking, and cheaper. So I think Maddison at that price, if he doesn't chip in with enough goals, I'm going to start to think, is it a bit too much for him at that price?
Good point.
That's just me though. Like Maddison's a fantastic player. I'm just not sure he's like a Martial who, when he plays, is like a forward, or like when Hudson-Odoi plays, it's not like a winger. Maddison's more of he's a long-term point accumulator. That over the season will get points, but he's not an explosive option. And I always go for the more explosive.
I think
that doesn't mean it's right.
A kind of cheaper way into that Leicester, though.
Exactly.
If you can't afford a Vardy, then
it's my second favourite for sure. Out of Leicester, it's Vardy then Maddison for sure. I wouldn't go anywhere else, but that's just me personally.
Cool. Well, I was going to ask you if we had any questions in the chat. If I'm not being a pain with you getting a drink.
No, not at all. Okay, let me have a little look. Okay, so Gareth Marshall wants to know who we think we should captain now between KDB or Sterling in game week 10. Obviously, Sterling smashing it tonight. KDB being a great option all season, really. Who are we leaning towards if we had them both? Jay, you've got both these guys, right?
I'm going to apologise. I was actually looking at Maddison there and didn't hear the question.
I did think he had his concentration face on. I thought, oh God, there's something wrong with the stream.
That's a classic dodge. That's a classic dodge.
Concentration.
Basically, mate, you've got KDB and Sterling, right?
Yeah.
Who are you fancying for captaincy in game week 10 at home to Villa?
I would always probably
recoil.
I would lean towards Sterling just because at the end of the day, I still feel like which he has proven tonight, he's that explosive option that could have a game week where you get a mega haul and then you double those points. De Bruyne, to me, yes, he's had a couple of very good point returns and does seem a little bit more consistent right now. But I always feel like Sterling's the one that could go really big. And I feel like as the season goes on, more and more are moving off him as a captaincy choice or selling him. I feel like when he does come in with a big haul, a bit like when Salah came in with his big haul last year when lots of people got off, I could benefit from Sterling.
Hopefully.
So I'd probably still lean
this
towards
weekend.
Sterling. But yeah, it's getting difficult to ignore Kevin De Bruyne right now with his 66 points so far. So Sterling with 53 after most of them coming in game week 1.
Yes, there's a big divide now, isn't there, whether Sterling will play on the weekend. I think a couple of you guys were thinking that he might not. A lot of my group chats on Twitter saying he probably will. I think none of us really know is the honest answer. So whichever you choose, have a good vice captain. I'm not always necessarily sure that that's a City player, because there is that nervousness, I guess, that's why I didn't vice captain KDB, is when I captained Aguero this week, was because I was a little bit worried that if Aguero was dropped, the KDB could also be dropped, and then I'd be without a vice captain as well. So
yeah, sure.
But I have to admit, once I seen that Aguero wasn't playing and that KDB wasn't my vice captain, it did take a lot of my excitement out of the game, like you were saying, Brett. It really did change how I was viewing the game, because obviously it's not my team. I do really like City. They are probably my second favourite if I could have one. But it did actually change the way I viewed the game a lot. It was more a kind of, I was hoping for people to not do well and all of this sort of stuff, as opposed to kind of really kind of cheering them on, I guess. Come on, this could be a chance that KDB could get something. And it's weird how the psychology works like that. So I think it is a worry, because obviously my temptation this week would be to captain Aguero again and vice captain KDB, but there is just that nervousness that it'll be that one week that I do that both of them will get benched, and that's terrifying. But then watching the game without having one of that potential, like you said, of those really massive points haul, and to know maybe the one might be your vice captain if your captain doesn't play, it would have made me view that game a lot like more positively. I think I really would have been cheering, like, I probably would have been fuming even more that Jesus didn't pass to KDB when he had the chance. But at the same time, and there's also the heartache that comes with that as well, I guess. If you've got really good vice captain and your captain ends up coming on for 2 minutes, that can be also quite devastating. So it's not really answering the question, though. Is it Sterling or KDB? Or I think I'm probably, if I still had Sterling, I'd probably, especially after tonight. So he's such a confidence player. He reminds me a lot of Zaha in that respect. I think if he plays, then I would probably captain, which is why, even though I have KDB now, I will still likely captain Aguero, I think, just because it's that, like you said, that excitement, that potential haul that could happen. Any differing thoughts there, Kurt? I know you've only got one of them, but
Sterling.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Straight to the point.
Love that. Okay, we have a message here from @35who. He says, given how unpredictable the returns are, is it more important at times like these not to take hits? So, hi Adam. I actually know someone this week who went batshizle crazy. That's what I like to call it anyway. Stu Lord from the Wurzels League took a -12 last game week.
Jesus.
Yes, he's in my territory right there.
I think Jason from Elite FPL has taken more than that in a game week, if memory serves me correctly.
Oh, yes, he has.
But did either of these pay off, is what I want to know.
Well, in Stu's case, at least, he did get a red arrow this week, obviously, because he quite a lot of hits and it was a low scoring game week. But it was only a 30k red arrow. So, like, in terms of that compared to me, that was actually a lot smaller of a drop than what I.
And now he's put himself in a better position for the following week. So you've kind of held your ranks, but you've made those for free now. Those transfers have become free. Anyway,
Yeah. So he had a net of +4 on Vardy, and things like that. So quite a few of the decisions he made worked in his favour in that respect. I think this very much depends on the position you're in. So I know that Stu is kind of in the millions somewhere. So for him, I think it was worth it. Like, it was worth going big on those hits, swapping up the team, taking a chance, all of those sorts of things. I mean, I've done that in the past. You guys know it. Whenever I've been
Trying to
really
subtly
rubbish.
convince me and Jay into taking massive hits.
Yes.
I've just used my
Do
wild
it.
card. I'd
Do
feel
it.
so
Just do
like
it.
defeated if I take massive hits after picking the team that I think is the right team for the
Yeah,
next
I think
3 or
you
4
have to
games.
stick for at least a
I've
couple
got
of
to give
weeks.
it a chance.
You've got to give it a chance. But yeah, I genuinely think if you're not doing very well, at the end of the day, it's a game, isn't it? And you do need to have some level of fun with it. And if you're really feeling like your team just isn't great, then I don't see why you shouldn't just kind of take the hits. I mean, my mum does it all the time. Like, she takes like crazy like -16s and still manages to pull them off. I don't know how she does it. She literally just goes, oh, on that player this week, on that player this week, does it. David Silva, boom, scores 2 goals. You're like, what? How did you? You know, she sold Salah this week and he didn't play. I was like, why did you sell Salah? She's like, I don't know. And then he doesn't even show up. I'm like, how do you know these things? So, you know, I genuinely, I'm not opposed to hits whatsoever. I do think the higher up you get, the more difficult it becomes to take them, because then they are quite big differences in rank, I think. So it very much depends where you're sitting in the whole grand scheme of things. But does anyone have any other thoughts? Are you dead opposed to hits? Are you all on the hits train? What do we think?
I think it's a change of perspective, isn't it? Because you could argue, I get what you're saying, when you're higher up in the rankings, if you're doing really well, you're kind of averse to hits because you don't want to set yourself back against the competition up there. And like you say, a red arrow could be quite it feels more significant, you know, if you drop from 50k to 200k or something. But at the same time, if you can look at it the other way and think, well, I've got this many points that I can afford to take a few away. Whereas when you're having such a bad season, you're already so far behind the pack, you're scared to take further hits because, you know, you're already so far behind, you know. And I think it's also psychological, because taking a lot of hits now, my team is a bit of a mess, and it has been for a while. So each bad game week I have, my initial reaction is, right, I'm going to take a -12 next week. I'm going to sort this crock of crap out, basically. I'm going to just hit and get this sorted.
That is not what he called it off stream, just saying.
No, I almost went there. Yeah. Is it after dark yet? What is the yeah, that's my initial reaction. Or I'm sort of like, maybe just before the game, I'll say, right, I'll go with this team now, be patient. If it doesn't pay off this week, I'm going to have to take a -12 and really sort this out. But then I guess it's like a lack of confidence to actually do that, because every decision I seem to make goes wrong. And then you think, well, what if I take these hits and they don't pay off? And then I have a bad game week plus the -12, you know, and that can easily happen as well.
Yeah.
So there's no right answer, really. What I would say is, I think if you're weighing up a big amount of hits, you have to weigh it up with decisions that are for the long term. If you're taking hits that are going to improve your team for the next 5 game weeks, where you can then measure your decision over 5 game weeks rather than 1, I think then it's more advisable. You know, it's more plausible to do that. Yeah. But if you're getting frustrated because you're having a bad season and you take loads of hits on a couple of short-term punts that don't pay off, and then you're putting more transfers into your future transfers in because you have to get those players back out again or something, you know. It's very situational. I would just make sure that if you are going to take hits, like if I do, it would be with a longer term plan in mind. So if I was to go crazy and take a -12 and get the likes of Robertson, Salah back, and maybe Vardy, and, you know, switch the team around, it's because those options would be looking at the longer term. But yeah,
And at
I'm
this
always,
rate, Salah's going to be a differential, so you know,
compared to what he
it could
normally
be
is.
worth it. You know,
Yeah, I mean, the more
either
confidence
that or
people are
I'm just
losing
being
players.
delusional.
I think that's the same appeal with Sterling now. He's blanked so much. It's like, well, if everyone else is going to lose confidence in Sterling at home to Villa, can I go for him? You know, that's where the appeal comes from, because you know other people are losing confidence.
I think now after tonight, though, I think that'll be less so than
That's
what it
true.
was
That's a good
at the
point.
beginning of the
No,
week.
no, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Okay, so at North FPL, we've kind of covered your questions, so I leave that to the lads to re-answer it again on Instagram, so we don't mind checking that out there. So do we have another question in the chat at all?
Yes. Okay, Richard S wants to know, are Spurs back in form, or are they still a wait and see? Like after this one win tonight, a convincing win, 5-0,
Yep.
do we consider that a confidence booster where we can see them perhaps being options again? Or are we still sort of waiting and seeing? Kurt, what do you reckon, mate? Is this enough to give them confidence now heading into the next few games? Or
Who's that? Sorry.
Spurs. Do you see them as still a wait and see, or are they back in form now after?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's always good to get a couple of goals against Bulgarian lorry drivers, but
Serbian
lorry drivers, that's not a good look. But I'm not sure. I mean, it's a tough one because I've got Son, and I think I've already said this stream that I'm going to be keeping Son. But the more I think about it, it just is like a metronome. I just keep on going backwards and forward. I think that's a metronome anyway. If not, then I look even more thick. But they've got a few tough games, but then they've got a sort of an iffy period where they have one decent looking game, and then they've got one tough game. And the way Spurs are playing, I don't fancy them in anything but from a really easy game. And even then, Watford at home, on all. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It depends what Spurs turn up, because you can tell they've had problems throughout the season and they've struggled. But yet you look at the first half against Palace, they've still got the class. You look at the way they played in that; they tore them apart. They made them look like a championship team. You look at and then you look at something like Watford. You look at the Newcastle games; they're just dull. They just seem like they're a team without the confidence, without anything really. So I'm not 100% really. I'm now on the side of I'm going to sell Son, but give me 5 more minutes and I'll be on the side of no, I need to keep hold of them, let them have a few more games. But at the moment, although it's changing the stream, I'm inclined to get rid of him because I've got a nice toasty few names to try and get in.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know, like I might hold Son, but Spurs in general, like I did have Kane and Son, and I was kind of annoyed at myself that I had gone for 2 options there, and I kind of backed them. And that was a mistake, because you're kind of hoping they go back into form when they're clearly not in form, rather than when everyone else jumped on Chelsea and Leicester options who were clearly in form. I was backing players that I was more over hope than what I was seeing. You're just hoping for a change in form out of nowhere. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the next 3, Liverpool away, Everton away, and then Sheffield United at home, who have been very sound defensively, they're probably going to shut up shop there. Spurs aren't breaking teams down that well at home. They lost 1-0 to Newcastle. They were at home to Southampton and won 2-1 there. Tight win, 1-1 against Watford, who are the second worst defensive record this season. So apart from the Palace game, that's the only one they've been convincing in. Even Villa at home in the opening game week, they just scored late on in the second half, those 3 goals. So I think that's one thing I've learned this season is when there's clubs like Spurs who have like an aura of negativity around them at the moment, with questions about the manager and the confidence is low and players don't look happy, why have I backed them? Granted, not many people owned the likes of Son, and I wanted a differential. But you're asking for, you're taking more of a chance there. Whereas Leicester, for example, have this aura of positivity and excitement around them, and same with Chelsea with Lampard, and they're playing more exciting stuff. So
in your fairness, though, I think you're beating yourself up a little bit there. I think Spurs were, looking pretty decent at the point you did, get Son in.
Son especially.
And they were looking good, and Sonny was just coming back in, and it seemed like a good differential to go for given Sonny's record. So I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice there.
Thanks, Nick.
Getting yourself up a little bit for no reason. No. Okay. So at Hamid Solly _96 has a question that he wants to ask everybody: is Pookie a must sell?
Interesting.
He bought him at 6.5 and he's thinking about giving him another chance at home against Man United. He already owns Tammy and Haller as well, so obviously he'd have to look to downgrade in that position. So Pookie, what do we all think?
Jay, have you got Pookie, Jay? Or
I had him for a small brief period.
So you've wildcarded him out now, right?
Yes, I think I actually transferred him out before the wildcard.
Oh, just because. Okay. So you got him quite early then?
Well, I didn't get on him very early, so I literally had him for like a game week or two.
Okay.
Just I wasn't happy with what I saw from him in the games that I did watch or match of the day, and just they're not creating as many chances as they were. There's of course lots of injury worries at the moment. It just feels like they started off well because they were buoyed by the fact that they were now in the Premier League. And it kind of feels not as bad as Fulham, but it feels similar to Fulham, where they performed really well at the beginning. All the numbers looked good. Everyone jumped on, and then it started to dissipate. Whereas I now look at Sheffield United and Villa, and I look at them thinking they still have players that look like options. They still look like they can go to certain opposition and get points. Yeah.
Oh, do not talk to me about John McGinn. Oh my God, that man.
He could have had an assist. Scored.
How many?
Was it a hat trick for Scotland or something?
We got VAR again.
Yeah, I said in my video this week, I genuinely would love to know how many points that man would have for my FPL team if he was allowed all of these VAR chances.
That was such a soft decision as well that he got ruled.
Honest to God, I sit there watching Jules every week at the 3 p.m. and she's got McGinn, and we're like McGinn sisters, and we're like, I'm just waiting for her to go McGinn, and then every time she goes McGinn, I'm like, yes, and then she's like VAR, I'm like, no, not again. It's just doing me in slowly.
And no point in the 5-1 as well, except the booking. That was shocking.
It's a return, a booking. But yeah, I was one that missed out on the party. The stats were good then, so I wouldn't necessarily say I regret my decision to bring him in, because at the time it looked like he needed to be brought in.
Yeah.
But I quickly jumped off because he doesn't look as promising as players in the same price bracket. Abraham currently, Wilson, although now I'm on him, he'll probably stop scoring again for a bit. But yeah, I just feel like you either go up to the players like Vardy or higher, or you have your Abrahams, your Harlers, your Wilsons there that just seem better options than Pookie. So yeah, I jumped off Pookie very quickly.
Yeah. Have you got him or?
I would keep him purely because I've just sold him.
Oh, nice. Who for? Jimenez or?
No, for Vardy.
Oh, for Vardy, of course. Yeah.
I do have a feeling that he's going to go bonkers again soon. I actually genuinely think that could be this weekend against Man United. So I wouldn't have necessarily done the move I did this week if it wasn't for the fact that I had 2 free transfers and that I'm working to a bit of a plan. So I've already got those transfers, hopefully, all being well, without any injuries or something cropping up, hallmark for something else. So I wouldn't have necessarily made that Pookie to Vardy swap this week, because I actually genuinely believe that Pookie could have a bit of a party against Man United. I can see a goal or 2 coming there. I'm not even gonna lie, like genuinely think like that's a gut feeling right there. So I know it sounds ridiculous then to have gone and just made a transfer early based on that gut feeling, but I think it could be worth giving him this home game and see. I mean, if he blanks here, then I really genuinely think maybe that Pookie party has ended. But I think it would be worth giving him one more week. So if you've got other transfers you can make or you need to make, I would probably, focus on them first, personally. But
yeah, I've got Pookie, and like I said, I got other sort of fires to take sort of extinguish at the moment because my team's a bit of a mess. So, but when I was considering to get rid of Pookie the game week before, I did look at the next two and thought Bournemouth and United. I don't mind those two fixtures. And granted, he's blanked against Bournemouth. Now, he did almost score. That, like Nim said, that home fixture against United, I fancy them to be right up for that one. So I'm probably going to keep him for that. But Jay does make a good point because it's not just Pookie that's suffering. Like Norwich have just stopped scoring goals, basically. So one goal from Norwich in the last 4 against Burnley, Palace, Villa, Bournemouth. Burnley and Palace away, I mean, you could argue they're quite defensively sound, not easy road trips. But the goals have just dried up, from the whole team, which was a surprise because they came out of the, flying at the start of the season. But yeah, I'm probably going to keep him for United, and then if he doesn't do well in that one, that could be the time to move him on.
I just want to add, I don't actually think Pookie is a bad striker. I think if he was in the right side, I think he's a very good forward, and he's been scoring on
quite
national
hampered by
duty.
those injuries, haven't they?
Well, they're not creating chances, and if you're not creating chances for him, then he's not going to score.
Yeah, I mean, if I was selling him though, Jimenez is such a tempter. Away to Newcastle, I fancy Wolves to beat Newcastle, and he's just coming into form. Got some good fixtures coming up, so Jimenez is like Mr. Reliable, Yeah, we haven't talked about Ings actually, but someone in the chat's talking about him.
Yeah, I'd had a look at him because I was tempted to bring him in, but the fixtures maybe don't support it. But 3 goals in the last 3 games, 4 goals, 1 assist in 9 appearances this season. A couple off the bench as well, so not all of the starts. So yeah, it's I think it's well worth talking about.
How much is Ings?
5.9. He started at 6 million. He's now 5.9. So that's not bad for this season.
It's not, but it's like.
Wood is another one as well, isn't he? Wood is a bit of a kind of
I'm not going back to Burnley strikers. I'm leaving them alone now.
I
never get on at the right time. I start with Wood. Barnes is the one.
Barnes
go to Barnes. Wood is the one.
Yeah, Burnley fixtures aren't actually decent. Actually, Burnley fixtures, for the next.
I might just go McNeil or Westwood or someone like in the field.
Westwood, yo. I was considering it because obviously, if I'd gone to Wilson, then I could have afforded Jimenez alongside him, like for a Jimenez, Wilson, Tammy 3 up front. When I sold Aguero, but I actually decided to go down the Vardy route. So now I'll be looking at that kind of 6.5 or less, alongside. So yeah, I'll be looking more at the kind of Ings, Wood, that kind of Connolly maybe if he keeps getting game time.
It's interesting how many options there are this season. Because last season it was like Jimenez was like the no-brainer, and we didn't ever have to think about moving him on. But this like talking about these options now, there are lots of decent ones out there. To be fair,
there are. And there's obviously Wesley as well of Aston Villa, and then there was the kiddie last night who played for Sheffield. I've forgotten his name. He scored. He's looking quite good.
Oh, Mousse.
That's it. Yeah. So, plenty of options in that area. Okay, then. We do have a few more questions here, but I think we're going to have to look to wrap it up now. So maybe you guys will be able to answer those over on Instagram for the peeps. So we'll head on over to Jacka's Corner. And
I don't know what this is now. I don't know.
I haven't actually looked at it.
Random question of the week given to us by Jeffers, and so we are each allowed to use a time machine once to travel to witness one event in history. Which one would you choose and why? Kurt, gonna put you in the hot seat first.
Do we then go back? I'm assuming.
I don't know. It doesn't specify, so I guess you can make your own rules up on that one.
I'm going to avoid.
Depends whether you want to or not, I guess.
I'm going to avoid. I don't really know, actually, thinking about it. I've not. It's a tough one to say. I know there's going to be one interesting one out there. I personally, due to my fact of loving conspiracy theories, I would love to travel back to Roswell. Don't know if anyone knows anything about that. I'm pretty sure it's Roswell, but probably one of the biggest conspiracies in terms of if UFOs exist. So one crash landed there. Is there, is there a cover up? I'd love to travel back to there to find out for myself. So at least I know if there are UFOs or not, and if it was a cover up, personally. But yeah, that's the one I'm going with.
Cool. UFOs. I think I'd travel to the end of Brexit, so I just don't have to listen to all this rubbish about Brexit anymore.
Back in time.
There's no back. There's no back in time. It just
you're going to be travelling a couple of 100 million years.
Use a time machine once to travel to witness.
Oh, we can go forward as well.
So I'm getting past Brexit, so I don't have to listen to it any longer. Just go as far forward as I can get away with. So, Jay, what do you reckon? You going forward or backwards or what?
I did consider going forwards, but because it said history, I just immediately thought backwards.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Because if I could go forwards, I'd just go to the end of the season, look who scored the most goals, and change my FPL.
I was literally like that. I was going to do the same thing.
Greatest comeback in history.
That's clear as cheating. You can't do that. It's not allowed.
But yeah, I'd be going backwards. And
like your rank.
There's a joke there.
Sorry, mate.
To be fair, it's true. I wouldn't mind going back to when just the start of the season Leicester won the Premier League, so I could put some money on it.
Fair enough. Brett?
I was going to say something like Jay. I was going to say go back to game week 1 and like look at the scores, and I think, right, okay, Sterling got a hat trick, so triple captain him, and like get all the like amazing players from game week 1. I'd probably still be 2 million club by now, but
I still have this weird feeling that you're both going to finish above me. I have no idea why, but I just feel like that.
Yeah, we'll all be in 3 million probably. 3 million in first and 3 million.
Kurt. He's gonna win it.
There's so many times, I guess, if I had more time to think. But I watched a documentary. I'll try and make this quick. Watched a documentary a few months ago about Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, and I'm quite into like astronomy and planets and stuff like that. And such a great documentary about obviously sending these like satellites or whatever in the Voyager out into like deep space, and it was those voyages that kind of took the first photos of like Saturn and Neptune, and it took like 20 years or something to get to certain planets, and people were like, I don't know, just seeing them celebrate when they saw the photos for the first time. And there was people that had put like a life's work into this, and to finally see the photos of all these planets for the first time, like I'd love to have been there and like just watch those first photos come in, and like I don't know, everyone was just like going crazy, like celebrating.
You could say the same about the moon landing, couldn't you? I guess you could go and actually see whether it actually happened. That would be cool too. Yeah, just like see whether it was like a conspiracy.
Yeah, true.
So. Cool. Okay then, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll pass you over to Jay to wrap up proceedings.
Okay, I did change the polls midstream because I forgot. But because of that, we've only got 2. We've got should we stick with KDB and Sterling? We have the options of yes, one but not both, and neither. 66% went to yes. One but not both was 22%, and neither was 11%.
That would have been interesting before the Champions League game.
Yes. Then game week 10 captain, we get these from Fantasy Football Scouts top 4, and then there is the option of other, which got 11%. But the winner of the poll, and the top 3 are all Man City, is Kevin De Bruyne at 44%, Sterling at 33%, and Aguero at 11%, with Vardy getting no votes at all. But he is currently 4th in Fantasy Football Scouts polls. So, thank you so much for voting in the polls. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, although there's a bit of doubt whether the notification bell is working, but never mind. And make sure to stay tuned with us on Instagram and on Twitter. We'll let you know when we're next going live, and catch you guys later.
Thanks, guys.